going to start off today with is stuff that GitHub can do to help you with your PowerShell processes. First of all, GitHub, of course, is a Git provider. And we're not going to talk too much about that because we don't have time for that. For the people who might not be that familiar with Git and might be wondering, but I'm not sure about how I can get started with Git. There is a session, I think, on Friday. I have a link on it on the end about how you can start specifically with Git. Friday, there's no conference. Might be Thursday. We'll be here on Friday morning. We're going to have a special session. But officially, there is one on Thursday. But now we're going to talk a little bit about the extra things that GitHub specifically can do for you. Because GitHub has a lot of features. And I only have half an hour or 45 minutes, so that meant I had to make choices. And that means that I just chose the stuff that I really like to show you. Which will be GitHub Actions, some CodeSpaces, some Copilot, and then some of the brand new features that have been announced this month. This also might mean that this sounds like a bit of a sales talk. And I promise you I'm not paid by GitHub in any way. I just chose the stuff that I like. I'm not going to talk about the stuff that I don't like. No, nobody got time for that. I'm just really excited about all this stuff, and I hope in the end you will be as much as I am. So for me, my name is Barbara Forbes. I am an Azure MVP as well as a GitHub star. I work as the Azure Technical Lead at OGD in the Netherlands. And I write a blog on Azure, automation, GitHub, PowerShell, everything around it, which you can find at Forbes.nl. And you can find me on Twitter at BA4BES, and that's also my GitHub handle. All right, let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, because these kinds of events can't happen without sponsors. Really great that they're helping us out, and you can find them all in the lobby. Have a talk with them, they're fun guys over there. And another thing I want to mention, and this picture is too big for my slide deck, but look how awesome this is. This is the logo for the user group that Jaap Brasser and I run in the Netherlands. This is the Dutch DevOps and GitHub user group, or DDoG. The fact that we both love dogs is purely coincidental. If you like GitHub stuff, you can follow us at ddog.nl. You can find our website. You can follow us on Twitter. And maybe come to one of our meetings if you're in the Netherlands. We hope to have in real life meetings again somewhere after the summer. Then I need to mention the GitHub Star program, because I found that I mention it a lot and people are not sure what it actually is. The GitHub Star program is sort of like what Microsoft has with the MVP program, but then for GitHub. So it acknowledges people who do stuff for the community. And this can be talks or blogs or user groups, but it can also be open source contributors. So if you give a lot of code to the community, you might be considered to be a GitHub star. It's a very cool program. It's very new. I think it's like 2 years old now. I've been a star for a little over a year, I think. And as you see, it's quite small. Well, it's small lines, but I'll read it to you. It's 83 stars at this moment worldwide. So it's a small program. It's really a lot of fun. You can find it at stars.github.com. By the way, in the end, I'll share all the links that I'm going to mention. And if you know someone where you think, well, they have contributed a lot, done a lot of stuff, and done a lot for the community, everyone can nominate everyone. So feel free to nominate someone, because there's not enough PowerShell people between the GitHub stars, because at this point I think it's only Chrissy and me. So we need more of them, so nominate people. And before we get to the fun stuff, the little thing about the fact that not everything in GitHub is free. A lot of it is, though. You can do a lot on your free account. And in a personal account, you can also create a GitHub Pro account. And with a GitHub Pro account, basically what you can say, everything that you get on GitHub Free and GitHub Pro is the same, except with GitHub Free, you can only use it on public repositories. So things like protected branches, you can only use on your public repositories when you have a free account. If you have a pro account, you can also do it on your private ones. So that's the biggest difference between the two. But what you see is more of a focus from GitHub on team and enterprise solutions. So GitHub is trying to set itself in the market as an organizational tool, something that organizations can use. Organizations should also have a free option, so you can create your own organization if you have a big open source project, for example. But over that you get the team solution, which is pretty much the same as Pro, I think, but then really meant to be for a team. And Enterprise, which is what you need when you're a slightly bigger company. As soon as Azure AD is involved, I think you should have a look at the Enterprise solutions. So that's just so you know that not everything that we're talking about today is available on free accounts. And some of these are for team accounts, for example. But we're going to see that all in a second. So now with the fun stuff, GitHub Actions. I think that most people might have heard of it by now. It's been around for some time. I sometimes feel like it's a year, but since COVID, everything feels like it's a year ago, when actually it's 5, and we're all getting extremely old. Don't know what happened. So I have no clue how long it's been around, but it's been a while. And you will mostly think of it like a CI/CD tool, where you can test your scripts, where you can deploy them directly to the PowerShell gallery and have that all happen automatically. Basically what actions do is have some sort of action when something happens in your GitHub environment. And I want to show something else you can do with GitHub Actions, because I think you will know about the CI/CD possibilities, but you can also have it interact with your GitHub repository. And I can write my own demo, or I can use Jaap's demo. It's a lot faster, and who doesn't like to demo in production? So this is Jaap's profile. What you can do with your profile is you can create your own personal space there, which will be shown here. And if I reach down, it says, here is this animal, which I think is some cute animal thingy, but that's not the scientific name. I don't know what the name is. And you can change these photos, Jaap claims, and I believe that. It says create an issue and the photo will be changed. So let's see if we can do that. So I can create an issue here, nice link, don't have to do anything, I just have to click submit new issue. And when I do that, I'll leave this screen open, and here an action should start running. There we go. This one is yellow now. That means that it's running. And we can actually follow it live. It checks out the code. And if we look here, it has created a comment. It's all done by the action, all automatically. I want to believe Jaap is somewhere now typing along, but no, he's not. This is all automatic. It says, I have updated the README with a new random photo. It's actually a cat this time. So we look over here. The action is ready. And now, see if this is enough. We have new photos here. Pretty cool. Oh. I stole something like this for my own profile. Sorry about that. The line got disconnected. I stole something like this on my own profile. I always get a random blog post from my blog on the post. So, but I do encourage you all to try this out and create new issues and see how confused we can get Jaap. And you can also do a PR to add your own animal pictures out there and get more pictures. So that's just an example of GitHub Actions. Now let's move on to CodeSpaces. CodeSpaces is a way where you can work with your code in your browser. And what you can actually do is create an environment based on Visual Studio Code where you can run your scripts, where you can build stuff, where you can do all your testing, where you can use extensions. It's all in a container in the cloud. And the best thing about this is that you can, for one, do this everywhere. So you can log on to your own environment everywhere in the world. But it's very handy if you're working in a team and you have some specific settings that you want to use. And someone new joins and you just say, here's your code space. And they have an environment running exactly as your team is already running it within a minute. It can be very handy like that. Let's see how that works. So here I have a repository, and if I click code, normally this is the screen that could come up first, the local where you can clone stuff. But here I have CodeSpaces. I've already made a few of them, because demos often fail, so I've made multiple. I don't know why it made 2 potatoes. I don't know if that's some kind of sign, but never mind that. So we have some CodeSpaces set up. I can create a new one, or I can click one now. If I create one, it will take about a minute, but that's very long if you only have 30 to spare, so I have created one already. And this is what you will get. And I will zoom in a little bit so it's a bit more visible. So this is like a local VS Code environment, but then in your browser. There's 2 tiny problems. One, the font is special. It's not very readable. And I think it's possible to put your own fonts in the browser, but I got lazy and I just went into the settings. So I got the same hotkeys that I can use in my local environment, and I found that Edge doesn't understand this font, Cascadia Code PL. If I do it like this, it will understand. Right, that's better. So we got a great environment. There's just one little issue. It doesn't have PowerShell. It really doesn't have PowerShell, which is kind of difficult if we want to work with PowerShell. The good thing is you can create a PowerShell environment very quickly. So I have a button right at the bottom here which says CodeSpaces. I can click on that and I can say add a development container configuration file. And from here I can have to do show all definitions, it's not at the default list. Search for PowerShell and I get a PowerShell option. And I can click this, upgrade everything while you're on it. And it's going to create the container files that I need, and I can rebuild this container with the PowerShell configuration. I'm not going to do that now because it takes a little while, so I have created one beforehand. And this is what we would get. And now if we do version table, there we go, we got the latest version of PowerShell here. So this is all the default, but you can create all your instances for yourself, make this workable for yourself, change that configuration file. You can even change the whole container, make it use a different container. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And here I can just create files and say save files like that. I can run them if I want to. Always one of the most impressive things to run, a string. And I can deploy this to Git. So it's really a local environment, and I can choose that I want to set it to Git or not. So add awesomeness. And I push that, and it's now part of my GitHub repository. So I can do everything right here. Within the browser. So this is really the basics. I can add extensions in here as well. I can do everything I want. So this can be very handy.
How much storage space do you have in that thing?
The storage space, you can actually choose it. You can have it go up or down. There are different SKUs you can use. Which brings me to a little bit of the bad news. This isn't free. Except, well, it's not available at the free plans. The free plan, if you were part of the beta and you haven't used it yet, then you're lucky because you're going to be part of the beta. They're not going to remove it from the beta users. If you were not part of the beta, then you need, at this point, it's available for Teams or for Enterprise. But these kind of stuff are pretty popular, so I know that they're still looking into it. How can they make it available? But it makes sense that it's not free because it's compute power. It costs money. So that makes a bit of sense. There is an alternative, though, which is not that cool, but still pretty nice. If you go to any repository in GitHub and you press the dot on your keyboard, it will open a web editor. So I can do things here. I can do quick editing here. Instead of in the GitHub portal, I can do it right here. Which is also pretty nice for doing quick stuff. The difference is I can't run anything. If I run a terminal here, it says there is no terminal available in the web editor. If you want to have that, you can use CodeSpaces or local Visual Studio Code. Another little downside is that the PowerShell extension doesn't work here. which is a little bit of a downside. But for example, the thing that Jacob had to do yesterday, where he had to add the capital to PowerShell, he could have done this right here. Would have been no issue. And the funny thing is, if you add something here and you change something, you don't have to push it, because this is the remote environment you're working in. So it's pushed directly. You can push to main all you want. What could go wrong? So that's a little bit on CodeSpaces, and I want to move right along to Copilot. Copilot also feels like it's introduced last year, so it's probably like 5 years old, but I think it's not that old yet. It's not general available yet, it's still in preview. And what Copilot is an AI pair programmer, which sounds like it's some kind of spaceship, so I like that. But basically what it does is to try to predict what you're trying to write. And if you use PS readline, then you might have seen it on the command line, but this will do it with multiple lines in your scripts. And it does that by collecting information from 2 sources. So it's AI, so it needs to be trained, and it has 2 different sources for their training. That is GitHub, all the public code in GitHub. It used that as a training model. Next to that, it uses your own repository, so your own scripts that you are writing. So it checks what you have already written and tries to create what you need based on that. And that's the good thing and the bad thing about Copilot. It actually works very well for your own scripts, but it uses GitHub. And as you all know, there's a lot of very ugly PowerShell on GitHub, because a lot of people write PowerShell that don't really know how to write PowerShell, and PowerShell is very forgiving. So it works, but it's kind of ugly. So the results aren't always, well, perfect is really too large of a word. They're not always perfect, but they do really help. And I'm going to show you what I mean. Because I've got my, this is my CodeSpace, and I got Copilot installed here as well. So I can use Copilot here. And here I'm going to create a quick example. Let's get this away. And open it just a little bit, and I don't need this one as well. So for a very simple example function, let's count the files in a directory, just to see how it works. I want this to be a function, and this is basically always the first answer it gives. Something like this, which you think is very nice. This is not PowerShell. Good try, though. So, okay, kind of disappointing, but let's move on. So I say get a file count. And this is also not what I want, but hopefully here it will show what I do want. This is actually correct. So this is something I could use where I think, oh, this is actually a good idea. I press tab and I accept that solution. If I don't press tab, I can just keep typing. So this saves me some typing, and less typing is always better because we all like to do less work. Okay, so this is good. We can do this to check if the path is correct, but this is going to be a quick function, so I just want to collect all the files. And this is nice, it's actually creating exactly what I want, but now my variable has the wrong name. Because it's going to count all the files now. So let's call this count. Now it's true, and let's see if it can. It's going to create a write host, so we can have a big discussion on if it should be write host or write output. By the way, if it's in the terminal, I'm going to use write host because I can use colors. Colors make everything better. Let's just do it like that, keep that discussion out of the way, everyone is happy. And let's get file count. Need to supply the path. 27, that seems plausible. I've written a lot of stuff in this repository. So, there we go. I have typed, like 5 characters, and it's typed everything for me. But in this thing, I think it's even more impressive. And this is what I mean where it uses the code that's already available. So here I'm going to get all the files in my repository again, and I'm going to say if the file count is greater than 5, there are more than 5 files in this directory. So I think we can guess what you want to have after that, but let's see if Copilot can guess it as well. And there we go. So this saves me a lot of typing, and I know we're all going to be lazy and don't type this all out, so it's typing it for me. And now who here is thinking, well, technically this is not correct? Yes, exactly. This is not technically correct. What if there are exactly 5 files in this repository? So let's say we want an else if in between then. There we go. Write your own code. You can do everything for you. And what I really like about this is that it creates consistency for you. So you don't make typos, you're not going to copy paste stuff, or you're just not going to be lazy and say, well, it was something with 5. It types it for you, it creates consistency. Another thing I really like. Here I have a function. This is a very basic function because it's not that much about the function. This one will create a connection with Azure, and it will collect all the virtual machines that are running at that time and create a list. You can give it a subscription ID, and if you do, I see a problem in here, by the way. Haha, fixed it while nobody was watching. So you can add a subscription ID over there, and if you do, it will collect all the VMs from that subscription, and otherwise will collect all the VMs from all the subscriptions. So pretty basic. So you've written this function, and you made it all clean and nice. And then what you need to do before it is an official function anywhere? You need to write a comment help, because that's the best practice. And you should do it, because that helps people understand your function. But it's kind of boring to do. And it's like, yeah, but I've got a perfect function, leave me alone. I don't want to make lines that people understand. I want to make lines that the computer understands. Well, good thing, one thing we have Visual Studio Code, where we can do 2 hashtags, and it will create the syntax. So that saves some time already. Let's see what Copilot can do for us. Yeah, this is too lazy. Let's not do that. Gets up. This is pretty close. I'm going to remove that. So let's do it like that. This is pretty close to the synopsis. All right. So for a longer description, we want some more information. Yeah, good start. The defined. Ooh. Well, still didn't have to type that much. And now I want to say if no, it's really close. So I can accept that and say all subscriptions will be searched. Okay, save some time over there. Now let's see if it can whoa. Wanted to do it too quickly. There we go. Yeah, add ID in there and I'm great. And it's going to learn from stuff that you do eventually. So this will only get better, because I did demos like this for like half a year ago, and they had a lot more hiccups. So it's really a working thing. And let's see if it can create an example. Well, technically, this is an example. Let's just... Oh, no, it can't reach it. Oh, that's no problem, because this is not a good example. There we go. Technically, this is an example, but that doesn't really help. This does. And this saves me the time of searching what was the syntax of a subscription ID again. Or do I need to make up some numbers? No, this is fine. This shows exactly what it will do. And I can even set it, I always like to use this syntax, and say, list of all the running VMs in the subscription. Can it even? Yeah, awesome. So not only does this save me time, it feels like a bit of a game that you're doing. Like, come on, you can do it. You can do so much fun stuff like that with Copilot. I talked to someone yesterday who actually had made a chatbot out of Copilot. He would answer a question, give it random questions, and it would give the right answer. It's a lot of fun to play with. I always try to do what it does when you give a comment that says it's working and it mostly ends with I don't know why. So, but in seriousness, this is something that can be very useful. So, We have Copilot, and then again, the availability. We're not sure about this point. We are at the end of the preview, hopefully. At Build, it was announced that this will be general available somewhere this summer, although we know what that often means. We know that the seasons can be very long in Microsoft and GitHub land. But they said they would try to get it general available this summer. They aim to have it free for students and for verified open source contributors. We have no clue how they're going to verify who is an open source contributor. But it's something that's good to keep track of on what is going to happen through this. And if you already have access to it, I hope this inspires you to actually start using it if you haven't yet. Okay. The next subject I want to talk about is GitHub Skills. This has been announced like this month, somewhere this month, and it's a learning program. And people who have known me know that I love Microsoft Learn, for example, because it is a combination of theory and practice doing stuff. And Skills is something like that. So this is Skills. And in Skills, they have courses to learn about Git. And if you've worked in Git for a long time, you often forget how difficult it can be to get into because there's so much going on. And this takes you step by step. It shows it, of course, it's all in GitHub, but it shows how you can use Markdown, how you can use Pages, how you can do pull requests and actions. It's not a long list because it's just been released, but I did this one, for example, to see how it works. And here we have resolve merge conflicts. And what you get is a template, and in the README it explains what you need to do. So you can use this template, and that might be a problem. I must say a Git provider session gets a lot harder without internet. I'll open the Wi-Fi if everyone keeps listening and not use the Wi-Fi. Yeah, there we go. So I can create a repository locally, and it will create one in my own environment. I could do this public or private, and it's going to use GitHub Actions in the background. So it actually recommends to do public, because then you don't have to use minutes for your actions. I've done it already to save a little bit of time because it's going to do something. So I have a copy of that exact thing. And here I have the stuff I need to do with it. So it gives me an assignment. But actually what happened when I first got this in my own environment is an action got kicked off. The action is here. So it created these actions for me. And it created a pull request for me with a merge conflict. So this has all been automatically created, and I can see exactly at the first time I'm working with this how I can actually solve it in real life. And after that, it helps me by an action chasing a file, me chasing another file, and then you have a merge conflict, which you can work with it for yourself. So that's pretty cool that it has the option to do stuff right at where you would do it afterwards. So here was the website. It's all free. You can all use it. I really like this kind of learning, but I also really like this one. I haven't been able to take a look at it. As I said, it's pretty new, but you can create your own courses like this with your own actions. And there's a quick start here. So hopefully the community is able to add on to these courses and help people work with stuff. So yeah. This is very new, and I think it's very interesting, especially if you're new to GitHub, or if you know people who are new to it, you can say, well, just follow these courses and you will get a basic grasp of what's going on. Another thing I want to mention real quickly, and I see I forgot to open that one, is something else that was announced this month. And this is my own profile, by the way, also with a random blog post. And of course, because I do a demo now, the picture is broken. It was working yesterday. But this is not what I wanted to show. I wanted to show achievements. These have been set up last month. Achievements have started, which is sort of a gamification to encourage you to be active in open source stuff. So when you do stuff in GitHub, you can collect badges. And the first one they announced is the YOLO badge, which I think is a great start. Merge something without a review. And I'm very happy that the repository where it happens is quick test 1, 2, 3, so I don't have to feel bad. I don't know if I actually have that one anymore, but I think this is a great start to do stuff. And you can get reviews, for example, for pull requests that have been merged, which are also in my own repositories, but anyways. So you can get badges when you do stuff. And yeah, I like the gamification thing. Seems like you can get levels of stuff. What they did, they said, well, these are available now, and we're going to release a lot more of them, and we're not going to tell you which they are. But they will move retrospectively, so if you've already done stuff, you can keep track of it. Yeah, it's just a fun gimmick to make your profile prettier. If you don't like that kind of stuff, you can turn them off, by the way. So yeah, that's something we also announced this month. And I also want to mention GitHub Pages, which I have done a full demo on because this whole presentation is on a GitHub page. So it's kind of a demo. So if we look over here, it's kind of, that's very small. Well, you just have to believe me. There is a URL here, ba4bes.github.io, and then GitHub Magic, which is the name of the repository. So you can create your own website and deploy that on GitHub. Now this is the most simple example you can get. This is basically a markdown file. But you can make it available like that. And you can make this pretty complicated. If you look at ddoc.nl, that's completely on GitHub Pages. It's free to use. You can add your own domains to there. And what really helpful in this is that you can, for example, use it for your personal portfolio. Or you can use for documentation to have it be a little bit more visible. It's something you can activate on every repository that you want to use. And like I said, this is just a website. And it's a thing I did because I knew I could stay completely in the browser for this session, which I think I've never done before. So nice. Another one I want to mention, something coming up, is GitHub Universe has been announced. GitHub Universe is the yearly event where all the new stuff is announced and people can do sessions. Last year it was completely virtual, and it was actually, the sessions were a lot of fun. Very fun keynotes. And we know the keynotes from Build, for example, from Scott Hanselman, these are really fun. This was actually on the same level or even more fun. They really invested in making something that's interesting for a virtual environment. This year it's going to be on November 9th, November 10th, and it's going to be hybrid in San Francisco as well as streamed. I don't know if it's going to cost anything. I don't expect so, but I have no clue. Last year it was free. And yeah, you can see all the sessions, so you can put this in your calendar already. And at this point, if you're interested in that, there is also a call for speakers open. They ask you what you want to do. If you want to do something recorded beforehand, if you want to do something over there, I'm not sure how that's going to work, or if you want to do something from your home. And they are very accommodating. I did a session last year for GitHub Universe, and they really helped you out with speaker coach and stuff like that. So it was a great event, and this might be as well. So you can mark your calendars. Then finally, I want to mention some other sessions I have found about GitHub that will be part of this conference. And here the days are there. I did put Friday on here. Yeah. No! Damn, now I need to create a pull request. You know what? You know what? We're gonna fix this. There's no event on Friday. Maybe there should have been. All right. No, I can't fix it. It's a picture. Damn it. It's a picture. Okay, you have to believe me. This is on Thursday. So Wednesday there's a session on GitHub CodeSpaces by Jaap. And you've seen how awesome his profile is, so this should be awesome as well. And on Thursday, I'm now wondering, the CodeSpaces thing, is that this afternoon? Maybe someone can check if I got the Wednesday wrong as well. So if someone checks if that is actually this afternoon, because I think it is. And on Thursday, you can create GitHub Actions with PowerShell and getting started with Git, if you're not that familiar with it, just getting the basics of it. Is it today? Yeah. We need to tell Jaap this, because this is a thing between us. We don't understand dates. When we did our first session of DDoG, we announced it at the wrong date, and we were so lucky that the speakers were able to do the other date. And then you think we'd learn, but we'd done it wrong like 5 times after that. That's just we're famous for getting all the days wrong. So I think this is fitting. And anyway, so today you can see a whole session on CodeSpaces if you want more of a deep dive. And Thursday you can see everything on GitHub Actions with PowerShell and getting started with Git. So that's pretty much all I have. I have the link here. This is, I'm going to make it public in a second because I forgot. So this is a repository with all the code we've just used. So the Copilot thingies, all the links to everything I mentioned are down here. So all the links you can find on this page. And this page, if you go at the bottom of the page, and I won't scroll now because people take pictures. We go all the way to the bottom. There's a link to the GitHub repository where all the code is behind it. I'm also going to put it on the PowerShell conference thingy repository, so it's also going to be available there. But here you can see everything that's happening here. And of course, if you want to get familiar with some stuff like GitHub Actions, Git for beginners, I have a guide on Git for PowerShell users. When you've never used it before, you can find it at Forbes with a 4.nl. And I think that's pretty much it for me. I'm a little bit out of time, but sure. So we'll have a Q&A in a second, but for now, thank everyone for listening. So are there any questions from the room, or was this all very clear? Yes?
You mentioned that AI is using all the code from GitHub.
Yeah.
So what would be my question is if it's using code from private repositories as well?
Yeah, great question. The question is if you the AI that Copilot uses, is that from public repositories, private repositories, or both? So that was my first worry as well. What about my private code? Private code is not being used.
Okay.
It's all only from public repositories. And knowing Git, they do have some sort of check on there that's not going to spare credentials anywhere if there happen to be in a public repository.
Okay, and when you are using it in your private repository, you just said that it's learning from your code as well. Can it learn for you in your private repository when you're working in your private repository? I think that.
Yeah, the question, if it's learning from your own code, or so the repository you're working in, will that work on a private repository? It will work on a private repository, but it will not be used for the overall learning set, but it will just be learned for your own learning set. So it is secure. There is some line against where you do need to have an internet connection to have it work, but it's not like your code is becoming available in any way to the world. Yep. Anyone else? Yes, I'm going to walk through you.
So I have 2 questions. So first of all, does it take into account the licensing of the code that is borrowing from other repositories? And the second thing, does the AI do something to not take out malicious code that can be obfuscated or can do something wrong intentionally?
Oh, good questions, good questions. So the first one is, does it take into account the licensing of the code that it's using at that point? The thing is, it's often not literally taking the code. It's making a combination. So the code has been used as a training model. So it will never take a literal code that it will find anywhere else unless a lot of other people have also used it as well. And there was some discussion on that, but it's not like it will create a complete program for you from some licensed program. So, and the other question was, how will it handle malicious code? And yeah, I think the same thing applies, where that it will never take just one solution it finds, because it's AI. But there are already some things in GitHub that will protect you from leaking credentials, from doing stuff that might cause harm. So I'm making an assumption, but I think the assumption is that in the AI they have protection to make sure that doesn't happen. Overall, it's always a good thing to check what the code actually is before you run it. Just, I have to mention that one. I mean, that would be my YOLO badge. Running code, you don't know what it does in production. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned that you would require a pro license to have private repositories.
I can hear you really bad if you check
You
it.
mentioned that you needed a pro license to have private repositories, but it's also included in the free plan.
No, you don't need a pro plan. He asked if you have to have a pro plan for private repositories. You can have private repositories in a free plan. But all the things we saw, so an extra feature, so like actions, you pay for them by the minute and you get free minutes. So these minutes you need to use when you have a private repository, but in a public repository you don't have to use them. It's they try to encourage people to do open source, so to have everything public. So you can have private repositories without any issues, but all the extra features like branch protection and actions and stuff like that, you can, in a pro plan, use them also in a private repository. Okay. Anyone else? No? All right, if you come up with anything, I'm going to be here all week, and my Twitter handle is in the bottom. You can always find me Twitter. My messages are open, so you can also ask anything there. So thanks, everyone. Enjoy.